I'm gonna play again with the chat application. And I've been doing some changes to it, just small changes. But let me show what I did. So if you remember from last video, I added this timestamp of the message. The changes for that is mainly I added this div into the messages thing, and it's gonna call the format message time, which is a method that is just gonna get the timestamp from the message and use this date format function to format the timestamp as date/month and then hour, minute. Of course, I had to import this function from date format, which I installed via npm install --save date format. So date format, if you go to npm, it's a very nice date formatting package. So it seems like plain JavaScript or JavaScript that runs into the browser lacks any decent ways of formatting JavaScript. So you need to use a package for that. This also means that I had to put the timestamp. So this is whenever a message arrives from the network, it already comes with the current time, and I just am transforming the name to timestamp. Oh, and then I also changed the index.html to actually read the. So I changed three things here. I'm going to show them one by one. So first is that I commented all these style sheet declarations here, and I'm now linking to a CSS file. And then I copied all these style sheet defined here, which now I can delete. And I moved it into the CSS file so it gets better organized. Yeah, and then I added some formatting for my chat. But since my goal is not to go deep into CSS here, I don't want to do that. So I'm just gonna close this. And third thing I did was I added this line. And the reason for that is if I open the inspector and I click here to switch to mobile view. So we are now kind of simulating an iPhone, and you see it's broken because the text box for sending a message is in a weird place. However, without this line, so if I remove this and refresh, it's gonna look just wrong. So I'm gonna put back that line, which tells something, I don't know exactly 100% what, to the browser that is gonna interpret the sizing of everything in a different way that is just gonna work for mobile. So those were the changes, and what I want to do now is I want to do a login functionality, and I'm thinking on how to do that, and I want to do the simplest way possible. There are probably millions of different ways of doing this. I want to do the easiest one. The first thing is how I'm gonna structure the front end for that, and I thought, well, I have here this app which is mounted in the index.js. It's mounted directly to the container, and I want to leave it as it is now, like this. And I'm gonna put everything in the same bundle in Webpack because that's just gonna be easier. So both the application and the login screen are gonna be in the same main.js file. Maybe for a production system, somebody would do differently, but for this one, I'm gonna do it like that. And the way I wanna do it is I'm gonna need a login screen, which I'm gonna go with template, and let's say this is the login screen. Of course, nothing is going to be changed. So I also need this data because Vue.js requires that this data has to be always declared and returning an object. And yeah, so the change actually I want to do is also I want to add a app container. So I'm going to call this app container. And yeah, so I said I would remain let the same thing here, but I'm actually gonna change this from app to app container. So this is gonna be the app container. It's funny that now it matches the element ID. So this app container is gonna be kind of a container for the app. And what it's gonna do is that it is gonna decide, and I have to declare this data thing here again. So the way you want to do this is something like if the user is logged in, you are logged in. If the user is logged in, then the user is going to see this one to proceed. And if the user is not logged in, then they're going to have to see this thing instead of this. And what this represents is that this is going to be the chat application, the chat itself. And this is going to be this login screen. And the way I'm gonna do that with Vue. So if I forgot to run the Webpack to keep compiling the JavaScript. Cool, so it's showing that already, which means the app is not being loaded anymore. Only the app container for now. And it's saying you are logged in and you must log in to proceed. Now what I want to do is that so I want to add an if here. So if user is logged in, and also then else. And I want to put a variable here that is going to say that the user is not logged in. And if I refresh, I'm just gonna see you must log in to proceed, because this is so this is not gonna go into the final HTML. This is just something for Vue.js, and it's gonna check whether this variable is true. So user is logged in. It's gonna show this, actually this whole element. Otherwise, it is gonna render this element. And since it is false, it's showing the second one. If I change it to true, it's gonna show this first one. So what I wanna do now is if user is logged in, I wanna render the app. It's gonna be app. And for that, actually, I have to import app from, and we are on the views folder, so it's /app.view. And then also already I want to import the login. So login, import login from login. And here I have to list it into the components. So pay attention that this is not actually an array, this is an object. And this is just really so it's I don't know how much JavaScript you know. So this is just a syntax sugar for this. So this is exactly the same as putting this. So it's not an array, it's not a list itself, it's an object or a hash map or a map or something. But it's very idiomatic to put it like this. So this is a very JavaScript thing. And if I refresh, yeah. So I am logged in. Now I can see the app. And here it is. If I'm not logged in, it is going to render the, oops, I forgot to put here the login. So it's going to render the login, and it's saying this is the login screen. So yeah, this is the login screen, so it's rendering this. And I want to do an adjustment here, and I don't want to actually render the app inside a div because that's not necessary. So I'm going to go and straight ahead change this to the app itself. And also this one, so it's easier if I just put the else here. And so if the user is logged in, it's going to render the app, and otherwise it's going to render the login page. So refresh, it works, changes to true. It's rendering the chat application. So far so good. Now, the way I want to do this is that I want to initialize as the user always being considered to be logged out. And then there's going to be a check to check whether the user is logged in, and then render the appropriate screen based on that. But yeah, before that, let's dig into making the login screen. So the login screen is going to be something like saying, I probably want to label saying username, and then there's going to be an input. I keep adding these div classes. So the input is going to be text, name and value are not needed. It's just going to be vbind. It's not vbind, it's vmodel. And then username. Or it could be all, yeah, like that. And then also the password. And for a password, we probably want a password input instead of a text one, because then that's gonna, yeah, make it like this. So far so good. It's very ugly, but never mind. Adding now a button to proceed to the login. So button login. We don't need this. What we need is a click. So add click is gonna be the method called, the function called, the code that's gonna run whenever the button is clicked. So perform, let's see, perform login. I think I don't need the parentheses. And then I declare the perform login function here, and let's just say login as, and then this dot username. And then here's going to be the username. And the password is going to also be empty. So foobar login as foobar. So good, everything is working. So this value is going inside this one, which then is being captured here. That is all fine. And yeah, that should be it for a very, very ugly login screen. I think I'm going to add some CSS later, but for now, let's focus on making this work. So whenever I click login, what I want to happen is I want to send the username and password to the server, so the server can validate whether this is a valid user or not. And for that, I'm going to call fetch, and then we have to make an endpoint. So server let's here some message handling stuff. Let's put them here. I'm gonna authentication stuff. So it's gonna be a post request to let's call it perform login, and then I'm gonna put a binding pry so that I can debug it easily. Perform login. It's gonna fetch the perform login endpoint. And I always forget how to use fetch. How do you send a body of a body? I'm gonna copy from here. So I'm gonna copy from here because I always forget how what the parameters are called and everything. Cool. So fetch perform login is going to be post, headers is going to be JSON, yes. Then JSON stringify, and here I'm going to delete this and put username, then this username and password, this password. So it's going to send these in plain, the plain data, the plain login credentials. And then this is gonna return a promise, and I wanna then put a then and response, and then console log. Yeah, I just wanna log the response. So I'm gonna do like that. And here's the server, so I have to restart the server. And I'm gonna log in with, oh, come on. Methods perform login. Maybe it's some parentheses stuff. So I guess, yes. The problem is that this is not Ruby, this is JavaScript, and in JavaScript you gotta put these, all this stuff here. Great. There you go. So I'm gonna put my username is Vue and the password that's secret. So if I click login, here I am on the binding pry, and if I type in params, it's not gonna be on the params, it's rather gonna be in the body. It's going to be like this one. So request body read. So the payload is gonna be this. And if I run this now, I'm gonna have here the payload. So then I can validate it with username or password. So exit, and here is the login response, and for some reason it responded with 200, probably I don't know, I don't want to know the body of this response. But what happened, so what happens next? Gotta do a way to check the credentials. And to be able to check the credentials is very important to have them stored somewhere. So a database is probably the way to go. However, since I'm just testing this, I'm gonna make it a little bit different, and I'm just gonna say that if payload username equals foo and payload password equals secret with a K, then the response for this is gonna be, it's going to be a JSON payload, which is gonna be, it's gonna be status login success, and I'm gonna say token. I'm gonna put a token here, and the token is gonna be, I'm gonna just type something very random on my keyboard. So this is gonna be a token, And I'm gonna explain later why I'm using a token here. And I also wanna return some data from the user. So user name is, and this is gonna be the full name of the person. Let's call it full name. So this is gonna be I don't know, John Doe. And I'm gonna add a second user. So otherwise, if this is, I should put like John here, and Dana Alice. Let's put Alice, and her password is also secret, but her token is different. It's like this, and then the full name is Alice Wonderland. Alice Wonderland. That's nice. And otherwise, so these are kind of the two users. I'm just simulating this because it's easier for making the front end now. It's gonna also multi-JSON dump, but it's gonna say something like status login failed, and then message user name or password are wrong. So quick and dirty login functionality. And now on the front end, I want to get this response as a JSON. And for that, I think I'm gonna put a debugger here. So this gotta be John and secret. And we are, where are we executing? It's not working, but I know that it's response. And then to get the response as JSON, we can do that, but it returns a promise. So this means that I gotta do like this, then JSON body. Here is the login response, and then I'm gonna write in here JSON body. So John's secret. It goes like login success, no matter how many times I do that. And if I type in the wrong password, login failed, username or password wrong. Cool, so now I wanna deal with that and say that if JSON body.status, if it equals login success, then alert and say, let's say user. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna use camel case here. So user full name is gonna be full name. And the alert is gonna say, hello, user full name, you're most welcome. Otherwise, I'm gonna check whether this is saying login failed. And if that's the case, I want to get the message, or I'm going to call it failure message. It's going to be JSON body dot, I don't remember exactly, dot message. It's going to say something like login failed, and then new line and failure message. And else, oh, I'm forgetting a, yes, there you go. Otherwise, if it is not any one of these, then it's just a system error. Try again later. Because if it's not either one of these two, then it's because the server is crazy. So it's probably a server error. So John secret. Hello John Doe, you are most welcome. And anything else? Username and password wrong. And if I put in here Alice. Hello Alice from Wonderland, you are most welcome. So far so good. What I want to do next is to actually change this to go with when we have a successful login, we should then go to the chat application. So that's how it should be. Now the problem here is, how do I go from this login screen? So if you look in the app container, and here's the login, and all the login is happening inside this component. Now, how does this component is going to change this variable? So that's kind of the tricky part. And what I'm going to do here is choose a technique that they called, I think they call it Vue.js bus. Yeah, it's an event bus or... so the way I'm going to do the event bus is... Yeah, actually I have to close this. And I'm going to create a file here called event bus. Eventbus.js. And what it's going to do is I'm going to import Vue from the Vue package. And it's going to say that event bus. Why do I keep typing it in plural? Event bus equals new Vue. And export so it is this simple, and now I have an event bus. So it's just that. To leverage it, I'm gonna come here to the login screen and say import event bus from, and then I am in the views folder, so I have to go to the root folder and say event bus.js, and here I need this. So import event bus from eventbus.js. I want to do the same in the app container, and now the way they're going to be linked is that whenever a user is successfully logged in, we are going to emit an event called user logged in with the user details. So this is going to emit an event. This is going to emit an event called user logged in, and this is going to be the payload of the event. And yeah, so we're going to now add an event listener in the app container for this. So whenever the app container is, I think there is a handle or a function or a hook, I don't know how this is called created. So whenever this is created, we want to go to the event bus and say on. So it's $on. And whenever this happens, is gonna call this lambda function. And debugger, I really want to make sure that app container created, I really want to make sure that this is being actually called. So yeah, app container created, there you go. I want to now remove it. And let's say Alice and secret and then login, so the alert, and then there you go. So here is the here's the event being called, and here is the payload. So the user was logged in on the login page, and we emitted an event with this name. But before the event happened, so when the app container was created, we registered an event listener to listen to events with the name of user logged in. And now that an user logged in, we are receiving this. And we have, as the payload of the event, we have all the details of the user. So since the user is now logged in, we can definitely say that this dot user is logged in equals true, because now the user is logged in. I want to do something else just to make my debugging faster here. I want to go here and put Alice and secret in the login form, so it's already pre-filled. So I just have to go over here and click login. And I want to remove this alert because it's just so annoying. So remove the alert, refresh, login, there you go. If I refresh, I have to log in again, but here I am. The problem now is that I'm logging in as Alice, but I can send messages as Jane. Hi, I'm Jane. Yeah, you're not Jane, you're Alice. Kind of a security issue here, isn't it? So let's go ahead and fix it. And actually, this is gonna take quite some work to make this happen. And well, that's why we're here, to make it happen. So what do we want to do? I want to now change this app thing, and it is receiving this username. So it has this username input. First off, I want to remove this username input because the user just can't now change the username. So instead of making it an input, I'm going to just get this variable and just show it. So it's going to be read only. So now if I log in, it's going to just show Jane. But it is still showing Jane instead of the proper user information or whatever. So I want to change a few things. First is that this payload over here, it is going to have what? It's going to have all this data: status, token, full name. And we don't have the username. Anyway. So this is not only going to change these users logged into true, but it's also gonna put user details, let's call it, is equal to payload. So the user details variable, which is gonna come over here, and it's initially gonna be null, is gonna receive the payload. And this user details, I want it to get inside the app. And to do that, I'm gonna say user details equals user details. I'm gonna call it user on this side. And I'm now passing this as a prop called user to the app component. And to receive this prop, I have to declare it as a props. And the prop name is user. So now this prop is gonna turn into a data, kind of a data inside here, but it's gonna come from an external data. Now I have this username here, and I really wanna get rid of it now. So I'm gonna just delete it. And what I'm gonna use here instead is user, so user dot And where is it? User.fullname. So user.fullname. Now refresh, log in again, and there you go, username Alice from Wonderland. So this is now showing the full name of the logged in user. And if I went too fast here, let me explain a little bit what happened. So the user logged in, and when the user logged in through this post request to the server then compared and saw it was Alice, and it returned this JSON payload. So the status saying login success, this token, which we are going to use a little bit later, and the full name of the user. Then this response came to the login screen because the request was made here. So it ended up coming through here. And then we checked whether this was a login success. And then we are emitting an event in this event bus. And this emit function, it is something from Vue.js already. So we didn't have to implement this. That's why it was so easy to actually implement the event bus. And we said, okay, user logged in, and we are sending along the payload that came from the server. And here in the app container, before that event was even sent, we registered a event listener to listen to all user logged in events. And when the server returned to the login page that emitted the event, and it was catched here and called this function. And then this function, what it is doing is it is saying user details equals payload, and user is logged in equals true. So this changing this user is logged in to true is actually going to show which whether the app or the login page are going to be shown. So whenever this is now true, the app is going to be shown and the login is going to be hidden. It is not going to be only like it's not only about being shown or displayed or hidden, but it's about existing. So now this is going to exist and this is going to cease to exist, which means the component is destroyed or reconstructed. It's mounted or unmounted. I don't know precisely the terms, but it's not only about visibility. It determines whether the divs inside and everything are gonna be in the DOM at all. So then what is happening here is with this colon user thing is that we are saying that when mounting the app, we want to pass a prop called user, and the value for this prop is going to be user details. So it's going to take the value of these user details and it's going to pass it as a prop. And a prop, we can use it like just any other variable declared here in data. So for instance, I could do this.user. And then we are not transforming the data. So it could be like this.user.fullname, which is exactly what we're doing here. Just here we don't need a this because it's implicit. But yeah, so that is what is happening. And now we have some other changes to do. And what is that? Well, the main one, actually, before that, I want to go ahead and change this payload a little bit. So this payload came from the server, but I want to change it actually here in the login screen. I want to change it to also include the username. So JSON body. Now I'm thinking, do I need a username? Well, if I want the username, no, I don't need the username. So I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna show how this is gonna work. Yeah, I have to log in every time. I'm gonna fix that later. And what is gonna happen now is that we have to fix the code whenever we send a message, because it's still reading this username, which does not exist anymore. So we made a little pause to scratch my head to see how I'm gonna solve this here. And yeah, it just occurred to me how I was planning on how to do this on the first place. So currently, to send a message, we are sending in the body, we are sending the username and the message content. So there's nothing saying that just a random person cannot use any username to impersonate another person. So of course we don't want that. We want some kind of authentication mechanism. So now that we have a login system, we can, it's possible to have something that to use that authentication that we entered with our username and password. And the way I want to do this is by using this token. So one of the things that I could do would be to get the user name and the password and send them along in every request. Now I prefer to do it in a different way. So this is gonna be this is actually currently the login endpoint, and what it does essentially is that, of course, it validates, it finds the user in the database. Here is a static database of only 2 entries, but nevertheless is a database, and it matches username and password against the entries in the database. And then what it's essentially doing is saying, if these credentials are valid, I'm exchanging this username and password information for a token. And the idea of the token, this thing, is that in the next requests that I do, I don't have to send the username and password again, because I'm not authenticating the user again. Rather, I have this token, and this token has attached to it which user I am referring to. So I'm gonna start implementing it and maybe understand better what I mean by that. So the first change is here in the send message endpoint is to remove the username, because we don't need it anymore. The username is going to be inferred by the server. And one more thing that I have to add here to the headers is I want to make this authenticated. So I'm going to add another header here, and I'm just going to call it API token. So I just made up this name right now. And API token is going to be the token that we got from the authentication endpoint. The authentication endpoint is the perform login post endpoint. And what we are actually sending, we need a way to send the token. So the token is found here inside this user prop. And I think it's called token, yes. So if we do this .user.token, we are gonna get that token. And then, well, this is done, I think, yeah, actually it's done. So let me just check if username is being used anywhere else. Nope. And then, of course, we have now to change the server. So the way I like to do this is to just put a binding pri here. And I know that we are now sending this header, which is called API token. So I'm going to put a binding pri here after we have the payload. And then the usual, restart the server. And log in, and let's send a message. So foobar, whatever. And here we are on the server. So crap, it is making these pull requests. Let me see if I can solve this. I have to type exit. if I open the server like this, it's gonna be Fabric. Yeah. I'm gonna to temporarily remove the set interval. I'm gonna just let it here, but I'm gonna remove the call to the server so that we can, or that I can more easily debug it here. And then refresh, login, send a message. Oh, there is the message. Yeah, so here we are. The payload didn't change. Actually, it changed. It has one less attribute than it had before, which is username, which now is, if we run this code, it's gonna be nil always. But now we have also a header, and the way we access it is by making request.headers or header, or is it just? Yeah, I think there's no nice way to access it. We have to do how rec tells us to do. So here's our API token. So because most servers and Ruby use this rec thing, and if you want to learn about is rec Ruby. So this is the interface between the web server and the application code. Anyway, the way I have to access that header is by making HTTP, and then so the pattern is that it takes all the headers and it puts in uppercase, removes or rather replaces the dashes with underscores and prefixes it with HTTP underscore. So here we have the header. And this is the authentication code. So this is the token that identifies the user. And now what I can do in the server is that I can come over here and make API token. So API token is the API token request header. And ideally, what we would do here is if API token is not present, or if it is empty, it would render a error message. But yeah, so let's go with the success path where the token is actually found, and then we do the error cases later. So first thing I want to do is to remove this kind of a static database from here and put it somewhere else. So I'm going to just remove this code and put it here in also a global variable. Later, I intend to do another video to put this into a proper database. But for now, we are gonna stay with a static database. So I'm gonna call this user database, or userdb for short. And what it's gonna do is it's gonna have entries. Better do like this. It is gonna have entries of sorry, it's gonna have entries about users. So here is gonna be each user, and so this is one user. And the username. So I'm gonna call this authentication with a lowercase a, and then username will be, in this case it will be John, and the password will be secret. And then there will be the user, I'm gonna call it user info. So this could be, actually this doesn't go here, and token also goes here. Because token is part of authentication. Or you could just put it like this in a flat thingy. So it's going to be flat like this. Probably it's going to be simple, more simple. So I'm going to duplicate this and make it work for Alice. I'm going to copy Alice's token, Alice's name. And now, actually I want to have this thing here copied somewhere. Cool. So this is the database of the users. It's totally static. And since I just removed this code here, I want to now go ahead and fix it. So it's going to be more easier now to add other users as well. So the perform login action is now going to go through all the users in the database. So user, and then it is going to check if the user, how's it called? Username matches a payload username, and if the user password matches the password provided in the request. So if that's true, then we return this user. Then it's going to be return, I think it's render. I think we don't need render, it's just like this, multi-json.dump, and then here are the attributes. So let's not change the payload that was being returned. And here is login, login success. So status is login success. So if a user is found, then login success. The token is going to be whatever is in the user, and the full name is also going to be whatever is in the user object. And if we don't find anyone, we are just going to return the login failed. That's why we need this return, because it's going to end the code here if a user is matched. So that's it for the perform login. Now we have kind of a dynamic database. And we are going to do quite the same now for sending a message. So the way we're going to do is, first we're going to find a user. So user equals, and then we are going to try to find a user through its API token. And it's called find. And it's going to find if you token equals the API token. So that's it. I'm going to put this code in one line just because it's very simple. So if there is a user, so this is going to find a user, and if user is not found, it's gonna then be nil. Then is also an error message. And here we have to actually return or something. And then now the username, we are gonna know it not through what came in the input payload, but we are gonna know it through this thing. So what happens here now is that the request is being authenticated via a API token, which we are sending in the API token header. There could be a better header name for this, like authentication, which is a standard header in HTTP. But for now, and for the sake of simplicity, let's just send it in the API token header. So I got the user via the token, and now we have all the information from the user. And now we actually know that nobody else is impersonating this user, unless somebody else has the somebody else would necessarily have to be in possession of either the token or the username and password, which then they could use to get the token and make this API request with the token. So that's why this is now a security thing, and you gotta place this information in a safe place. And the code from this part forward does not change. And what we can do now is I'm gonna use exit with a bang so that it's not process anymore, and I can just start the server. So I have to log in. What a new message. What a new message. Yeah, so of course I have to go back and re-enable my fetching messages thing. So Alice says, what a new message. Now my problem here now is that I have way too many messages. And well, let's send yet another one. Yet another message. And there it is, so the message is there. Now I have to fix this UI. There has a scrolling here, but the problem is that, well, you see the problem. I guess I don't have to. The problem is the CSS. And now you see that we have a login system. And now we know that it is Alice who is sending this. One thing I notice here is that this thing is stating Alice instead of her full name, when this is stating the full name, or kind of the full name. So that's easy to change. It's just a matter of maybe in the server we can, in each message we would send the user full name. Well, yeah, after all, it's not so easy changed. Yeah, not a so easy change. Maybe I do in a different video. So yeah, so how does this go from here? Now we have the login ready. The problem is that when every time I refresh, I have to log in again, and this is very annoying. So I want to keep this information, this login information, in a place that I don't have to keep logging in again and again and again. So that is my next step. And the way I'm gonna do is I could store this information in quite some different places. So one place would be to store it in cookies, browser cookies. Another place would be to store it in it's called localStorage. So I like to search it like MDN, because then the results from Mozilla comes up and they are really good. So localStorage is it is a local storage, as the name says, but it stores things in the browser, and this information they can persist across different sessions. So if I refresh the page, I can later on get that information again. So it seems like a good place to store the authentication details. Now, the usual way I would say would be to use cookies. So yeah, cookies are very complex, and the problem also, something that we don't want, is that they are automatically sent along the requests. So if we are sending, as here, the API token in the API token header, if we were using cookies, they would also be automatically sent by the browser to via the cookie header. And then cookies is you see, you have all these issues with every website that you enter. They have this: do you want to see cookies? Do you agree to using our evil cookies or whatever? So I don't want to use cookies, and instead I just want to use something where I can store data, small chunks of data, very simple data in the browser, and this is local storage. So local storage has those properties. Yeah, I'm gonna first remove this checking for new messages log, because it's getting annoying. So comment that. And so to use local storage is just this. So window.localStorage, and I don't need window because it's just a default thing. And I don't remember the API. I never remember. That's why I have it here as a reference. So a store object is going to be set item and get item and remove item. So set local storage is, in essence, it is a how is it called? It's a key and key value database. So if I store a key with, if I store an entry with the key foo and value, I don't know, could be a JSON payload, for instance. So if I set this item, I can later on get it back by using get item, and then I would get it like this. So it stores strings, always strings. And if the object is not there, it just returns null. It's synchronous, I don't have to use promises, and every browser should have this. And of course, the local storage, it is not shared for all websites. So for instance, I am here on localhost on this port number, and I do get item foo. So if I refresh it and I do it again, the value is going to be there. However, if I come here to mozilla.org, if I do this, of course, it's not going to be able to retrieve this. That's because foo is only valid for this host here. So if Mozilla, so different websites, they cannot see the local storages of other websites. Otherwise, this would be a security mess. Now, just imagine one website setting a key value pair, and then another website comes and tries to read key value pairs from different websites. That just wouldn't work. And we have a way to access this here via the element inspector. And if you go here to these arrows and go to application and local storage, and then this entry here, you can see that here are so this would be a list of all the key and values, and we can even edit them from here or remove them. So that's it. It's a very, very simple thing. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna store the authentication information there, because it remains across different. If I keep refreshing and refreshing the page again and again, it's gonna remain there. So when do I want to store that? Well, I want to store when I finish logging in. So in the login page, I'm gonna do this emit user logged in, and then who's gonna capture this is the app container. And what it is also gonna do is, now it is gonna do window.localStorage. Window is not necessary here. Local storage is already, well, window dot is actually never necessary, because it's the default thing for global variables of the browser. So I'm gonna do set item, and it's gonna be the user API key. I'm gonna call it API, not API keys, API token, and the value is gonna be well, not that's funny actually. So the idea is that it would be only the token, but I'm gonna store more information here right now. So, well, this is definitely gonna be only the token, and then I can set a also different item, user details, and then I can set the whole payload. So it's gonna be json.stringify, because it cannot store JSON objects. Probably would serialize to JSON, but I just prefer to make it explicit here. So it's gonna transform it to a string and store it in the local storage just after the user has been logged in. So if I now refresh it, let me open this thing. So if I refresh, I only have this full thing, and if I log in now, there you go, you already see the user API token entry and the user details. And yeah, although this is a string, this is just showing the individual fields here because Chrome already recognized it as being a JSON payload. So Yeah, actually, I could just store the full name. That would be enough. Anyway, let's store it like that. And well, that doesn't quite solve our problem because we still have this thing. But now we have this information in the local storage. So what I can do here in the app container is whenever this is created, I'm gonna do something that is, and I'm gonna use a method here. So this check user login state, check user login state, and then I'm gonna create a method for that, and it's gonna be check user login state. And what this is going to do is it is gonna try to look into the local storage to see if the user is logged in. And instead of set item, it's going to be get item, here as well. So let token equal get item, and user details. So now if the token is set there, that means we are probably logged in. Otherwise, we are not logged in. So otherwise, nothing is going to happen. But if token is set, then what we want to do is we want to do this. So this dot user details equals the payload, which is actually this. This token we are not going to use right now other than for testing this condition. And then user is logged in. So if I refresh now, I'm gonna see an error. Nice. Probably that's because methods. Well, let me read the error message. Yeah, I have an extra parenthesis here. So now refreshed, and I'm already logged in because my information is here. So no matter how much I refresh, there you go. Now, if I come over here and delete these entries, so if I delete these entries, I'm gonna also remove this foo thing, then automatically I refresh and I am now logged out. And then if I log in again, then now I can safely refresh. So I'm not going to implement a logout functionality now, but it would basically be a logout button would do something like localStorage.remove item, and would just remove the API token and also the user details for we don't want pending sensitive user data there, so just remove it. Now of course there would be the need to code something to go back to the login screen. That's easily doable with window.location equals window.location. This might sound funny, but actually when you change the location, the window.location variable, even when you assign a value to it, even though it's the same value that was before, it is gonna issue a full page refresh. So that could be the code for a logout button, but I'm not interested in logout right now. I'm just interested in login. So now if I open a incognito window and I log in with John, and I'll refresh. Yeah, there you go. So this is logged in now with John, and if I type in something, hi, I'm John, it's not gonna work. Why didn't it work? I think that the user might not be John after all. Is it John? Yes, and the secret is secret. So what is going on here? Maybe. Nope. So here is the thing, John Doe. And for some reason sending the message is not working. So let's send it. And it didn't even send the message. Post return 200. Seems like there's a bug. Now I wonder what it is. Are the tokens the same? No. User API token messages, username. So what went wrong here? Let me delete this. Cannot read property full name of. Yeah, we have to delete this one. So John, secret, login. There we go. Send a message, whatever. Yeah. Cool. So I got the issue. No, the issue is that this would also fail. Yeah, John sent that message. And yeah, it's very simple. I just forgot to process or to parse the JSON here in the app container. I'm just assigning it as payload, not here, but here. So this actually has to be JSON.parse. And now it's going to work. And let's refresh also here. And then say, hi, I'm John. I'm John. And there you go. Hi, I'm John. Yeah. That is what was missing. So we have a shared application with some very, very basic login functionality. And we have also some very basic, some very basic authentication system and storing the authentication for the next sessions. So this is it for this video, and I intend to do more on these chat applications. There's a lot of stuff to improve on here, especially regarding this user thing. There's no user profiles. User does not have pictures. There's not a proper database for users. So yeah, for today we stay here. Goodbye.